Hello everyone, this is Loco S, and welcome to Star Citizen. Today we will be covering mining, and we're going to be going over what mineral each moon has in the Stanton system. We're going to start off with Hurston. Hurston's a good place, relatively speaking, to start your mining career, mainly because its in-game store that's in the landing zone is a Tammany & Sons, and it has a bunch of mining equipment, and I believe it has something like the more of the industrial themed armor. It's rough town, but it's a decent place to start for as a miner. We're going to start off with the moon of Aberdeen. Aberdeen, relatively hostile, and you do have to be aware of a place or prison, but you can find Quartz on Aberdeen. Next planet, Ariel. Ariel also has Quartz on it. So both Aberdeen and Ariel both have Quartz in the Hurston family of moons. Moving on next to Magda and Yela. Magda and Yela both have iron. I want to make a point about iron deposits is that they are very tough to crack, and that is by purpose. The minerals that comprise these rocks are actually supposed to be represented in the actual rocks' mass with their density. So obviously, quartz is going to be less dense than iron, because I believe quartz is silicon. I know quartz has silica, and I know how it has oxygen, I think. But iron is just the element iron, which is way denser. So obviously your iron deposits are going to be harder to mine, you're going to need more power. I would highly recommend, if you're mining, therefore, on Magda and Yela, to bring along a mole, or you yourself go, hey, I like to work in the mining profession. Does anyone have a mole? I'm willing to tag team with you, and we can go ahead and mine on Magda and Yela. So, just giving you guys some options there. You can also use various different mining heads and gadgets to try to mine iron deposits, but keep in mind, they are going to be very difficult, if not impossible, unless you try to do some fancy techniques and change out gear. Whereas the quartz deposits on Aberdeen and Ariel will be by default easier to mine. Moving on to Area 18 and ArcCorp. Well, ArcCorp the planet, Area 18 the landing zone that you'd be going there for. There's Lyria and Yela. Now, Lyria is the only source of Corundum in the game, and Yela is the only source of aluminum. So, Lyria generally is it's generally like any other moon, nothing fancy, kind of gray, kind of boring, but that's where you get where you're going to get your Corundum. Yela is unique because Yela has these emerald green stones. And there's actually a little bit of lore in the game saying that on Stellar Fortuna, one of the pranks that they kind of play, and they kind of like a lot of the bars and small businesses partake in, is that if you go to the moon of Yela, you're supposed to pick up one of these like emeralds, these emerald-looking gems, and like you're supposed to like bring it in, and everyone has a laugh about it. Because they actually are. I think in lore they're technically useless, but the cool thing is of Yela is that they actually cover all of the mining deposits as well as sort of like their mining fields, so it looks really cool. And Yela is one of my favorite moons in Star Citizen currently, so a little bit of bias there. But aluminum, very light, as a very light mineral, is very good for prospect and mining. Lyria with Corundum is a little bit harder, but still definitely doable. I would also recommend with Yela and aluminum, because aluminum is such a very light metal, it is very easy to overpower the deposit and blow it sky high. So you want to be very careful about your power throttle, and you might want to try to find something that can expand the green zone. Moving on to the infamous, the original, the OG of the 3.x series, Crusader. We have the infamous three moons of Celin, Daymar, and Yela. Celin has titanium on it, and Yela also has titanium on it. And these can be mined with a prospector. It takes a little bit of effort, but it can be done. I would note of the two, be careful about Yela, because that is where the basically main pirate base is in game currently. Grimhex is kind of like the only safe space for pirates in the Stanton system. So you want to be careful because there's probably going to be more pirates. You're probably going to encounter more pirates in Yela than in other areas of the game. Beautiful views in Yela, but you're just you want to be careful with Grimhex being nearby. Daymar actually has a different mineral. Unlike Celin and Yela that both have titanium, Daymar is the only source of copper in-game. So, Daymar, obviously, you're going to have a completely different feel from the other two moons, different mineral. If you definitely want to change things up on what you're mining, go to Daymar. Also, copper being copper has some mass to it, but it's very ductile, and they reflect that in-game by having it have very little resistance. So, it's another good mineral for your beginner miners. Just be careful how much power you put into the rock, because it's also very easy to blow up. And lastly, we get to the moons of Microtech. We have Clio, I think it's Clio, Euterpe, and Calliope. I think I'm pronouncing those right. Unfortunately, all three moons have quartz. That's all they have. And if you remember from the beginning of this video, Aberdeen and Ariel also have quartz. So I don't know if this is one of those things where they intended to give those three moons like Corundum, aluminum, and copper because those locations only have one other place in game you can get them. Don't know if it's intentional, don't know if it's not intentional. But alas, you can mine quartz on all three of Microtech's moons. I would also be careful because I believe it is Clio. I believe Clio has very strong winds. So when you're mining on that moon, it is very possible to actually be blown off and ram into something. I know I've done quite a few trading runs around the Microtech area, and I believe it is Clio is the one where I have trouble with, where sometimes I'll set my ship down, I'll exit out, go grab cargo from a station, run back over to my ship, and see that the ship is flying away, even though I turned off the engines, because the winds were that strong. Other than that, Microtech's relatively safe, so you don't really have to worry about pirates too much, and Shubin Interstellar, one of the big mining corporations in-game, is actually headquartered on Microtech's landing zone of New Babbage, and they actually have an in-game store that you could visit to pick up, I believe, mostly FPS gear for mining, and I do believe they have some shipping components there as well. So it's another good place for a beginner miner because quartz is relatively easy to mine, plus you have that store there to pick up gear. And lastly, before I go, I'll spend the last little bit here going over some general mining tips. If you can, make sure you refine your ore if you have the ability to pick it up in a ship. You will get way more. You will generally get more money out of refining and then selling it. If you want to be, if you have the time, like for instance, you mine throughout like the work week, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I would use, I believe it's denixolvination, I believe. There's one processing method that is very low speed and low cost, but high yield. I highly recommend that for us people who have day jobs, where you can go in, mine throughout the week, and then basically store up your mineral processing orders, and then go in a larger cargo ship, pick up orders, and then sell them at a trading outpost. Other things to note, really, just don't get too greedy with your power. If you're seeing a deposit that's mostly inert materials. Ignore it. Inert material. There's no way to get rid of inert materials once they enter your cargo bay. There is, however, a special sub item called. So, one other tip I would have is if you're looking for a general purpose good sub item for your ship laser, but you don't want to like sacrifice or play with the settings too much with gaining one thing but losing another, I would highly recommend picking up a filter module. The filter module reduces the amount of inert materials that your ship will pick up, and it's a good way to extend your cargo run, your mining runs, by filtering out a little bit of excess inert materials along the way. Because if you don't do that, you could find yourself quickly loaded up on inert materials. It's not as bad as in this patch as in previous patches, but it can be a problem. So that's it for mining in this patch. Lots of good updates for the basics. Highly recommend going out and giving it a try yourself. If you don't have a mining ship, you can always do FPS mining in caves. Plus, I highly recommend just going out and chat or talking to a friend who owns a mole. If you can crew up on a the mole, which is a multi-crew mining ship. The mole, with the heavier deposits that are found more commonly, especially if you're in the Hurston area and you're trying to mine iron, using a mole is going to be a huge, huge asset. So, until next time, this is Loco S, signing out, and happy mining.